Going on, guys? Chris here again. Figured I'd bring you another playthrough. Game I picked today is called Puppeteer for the PS3. Now, Puppeteer is one of those interesting games that you don't see a lot of. It's a real creative kind of game. And these are the reasons that I love it. I love it for the acts that it is and not what it isn't. Like it is, like I said, it's a very creative game. You're not going to see many like it, and it's just one that if you are somewhat on the fence about RPGs, or you're not really into RPGs, this is one I would still highly recommend you pick up, just for the fact that it is a super creative game. Now, as far as the plot goes, well, basically you actually start out as a boy. His name is Kutaro, and you get sucked off planet Earth by this tractor beam thing, and basically it pulls you to the moon. Once you get to the moon, something extracts your soul and it turns you into a wooden puppet. So in that retrospect, it's kind of like the reverse of Pinocchio. I mean, Pinocchio was a puppet who turned into a real boy. You're a real boy who turns into a puppet. So it's kind of the reverse, kind of that. But and basically, when you arrive on the moon, the first thing that happens in the opening scenes of the game is the Moon Bear King, who's the head honcho, the big badass in this game. He eats your head. Yeah, he just eats your head, swallows it up like it's a fucking olive, just tosses it up in the air and chokes it down. So anyway, you spend the game, your whole adventure is basically, it starts out, you're trying to find your head. You're trying to reclaim your head that this asswipe ate. So basically, you're just going around and you find a whole bunch of heads and you eventually get to yours, but that comes a long way in there. Now, the character himself, Kutaro, he has an interesting name, Kutaro, I guess, Kutaro. And basically, it's funny because that they named him that, because all you do throughout the game, not all you do, but a great deal of what you do is cutting. So I'm just going to say this, like, if any of you guys are big on arts and crafts fans, like I was a huge arts and crafts fan. That was like one of my favorite classes when I was in middle school. Who loved arts and crafts? This guy. So if you loved arts and crafts, this is definitely a game you're going to want to pick up, because it's basically a game built around arts and crafts, guys. I mean, if all you did in arts and crafts was cut stuff up, then this would be that game. Which is pretty much what I did. I just destroyed other people's stuff. So it was like arts and crafts all over again for me. So some of the things that I liked. I like the fact that Kutaro is like a real, like, how do you say this? He's the real hero, but he wasn't exactly chosen. What happened was, like, several other puppets had tried and failed before him. It was basically try everybody until we find somebody who can actually reclaim these magical scissors. I think they're like Calabas or something. And basically that's when your cutting adventure starts. Because before you actually get the scissors and are able to cut, Kutaro is pretty vulnerable and it's kind of annoying, actually. But once you get the scissors and you can start cutting people up, and really cutting people up, and cutting, the backgrounds and the scenery and everything, it becomes a really interesting game. And some of the things that I like, I mean, as always, I thought the controls were really good for this game. And like I said, in a game where you are bouncing around from cloud to cloud, cutting stuff, like there are so many things you cut in this game. You cut leaves, you cut vines, you cut twine, you cut clouds, you cut smoke, you cut everything. Basically, cutting is your way of getting around. And in a game where the mode of transport, basically the mode of movement, is cutting, like, I must say that they did a really good job. They made it look very fluid. It actually looks like scissors just gliding through, wrapping paper or regular paper. I don't know. It looks like scissors gliding through paper, which is really, something that probably took them some time. And for the idea that they did such a good job makes me really happy, because it could have been terrible. Now, Kutaro does gain some powers throughout the game. Like, he gains a ninja power, and he's able to throw bombs, and he gains the knight's power, where he can he has a shield because knights have shields. And then there's also the pirate power where he has a little hook and it's like a grappling hook. But lastly, he gets the wrestler power, which is pretty awesome because basically it's all like, I guess Lucha Libre is basically a real Latin kind of geared game. So it's like you're rolling through these like real Texan or Mexican, Latin American kind of levels, and then you eventually come across the wrestler power, which is pretty hilarious and pretty funny. And it's his little wrestling moves are amazing too. So it's definitely something that it was one of my favorite powers. Too bad it just comes later in the game, but it is really amazing. Now, something I thought that they did really well, because the game is basically a stage. You are on stage, and it's a play. There's an audience watching you, and the audience, they clap or they boo or they ooh or they ah about certain things on stage, what happens, and the audience is reacting. So it is interesting to see. You're like playing through a sitcom where the audience is actually a member of the game. But since it is on stage, like the background and the foreground, everything is always moving on a stage, if anybody knows anything about like stage performances. So what I liked that they did really well was the transition from like one scene to the next. Like you can actually see it breaking down and becoming the new background, foreground, new place, whatever it is. And that is a really interesting concept, and they did it very well. Like they made it look very puppet-like. Everything is on strings. Everything is just, every detail you can think of, they did it, and they made it look amazing. They made it look phenomenal. So let's see. Like I said, you collect a lot of heads because you're looking for your head. There's so many different kind of heads, guys. They all do different things. Like they don't all have superpowers. All the heads don't do, like, they don't have abilities, but they have like little, I guess, performances that each of the heads themselves give. Like, you can have a pistol head or a sword or a spider or a bat or a ghost or a pumpkin, a candy house, a piece of cake, an octopus. The list goes on and on, guys. I played the whole thing. I didn't collect all the heads. I probably didn't get half of all the heads. There's a not a penguin, a flamingo, Mr. Pink. There's a hedge, there's a Christmas tree, there's a Yeti, there's a snowman. There are just so many heads, guys. It is ridiculous. And because I'm a collector. Like, I like games where you collect certain things. I've, been a huge Pokemon fan forever. And so I like that they also threw the collecting aspect in there. Like, it makes it, it adds another kind of dynamic to this game that it didn't really, because it was already a really good game, but by adding the collecting dynamic, it made it a little more, had a little more depth, and it, kind of drawed me in a little more. So in this game, this is another game where the boss battles are huge. They have a lot of amazing boss battles. I think one of the first bosses you fight is a lion, and then maybe a rat and a snake, and then eventually like a dragon, some pirates, a kraken. There are just so many really good boss battles up till the final boss, which is actually the Moon Bear King himself. And basically, well, the boss battles are all pretty similar in the fact that the bosses are huge puppets, guys. And it is awesome to see that the scissors, these powerful scissors that Kudrow has, actually can just cut apart their wood. It's basically like he has a wood chipper on hand and he's just dicing these guys up, which is phenomenal. It's awesome to see. It's awesome to see they're actually like pained when they're really just wooden puppets and stuff. And you can always tell when you're getting to the end of a boss battle because the scissors will start to, they'll like catch on fire, and then you'll start this like click this button, this button, this button, this button, and it's like a fight sequence where you actually have to like click the buttons in the sequence. But and they're not really challenging. I didn't really find any of the bosses very challenging, but they are fun to look at. They're done really well. They're drawn really well. A lot of them have, a lot of special abilities and stuff that make them very interesting to play against and very interesting to fight. A few of my favorites, like I said, probably the dragon, the bunny, and he's like a bunny magician, but he's pretty challenging and he's hilarious to kill too. And of course, the Moon Bear King. Now, when you actually get to the Moon Bear King, it's basically, you fight him, and he's just like any other final boss. He has, several stages to his eventual demise. And basically, when you fight him, you're just, slamming around on him and cutting up his claws or bouncing his claws back at him using the shield or something. Because a lot of that is that with the shield and with the hook, you're grabbing onto stuff or you're bouncing stuff back. And then eventually, when they do break down and leave themselves open or vulnerable, you just cut them apart. Like there'll be a seam. And that's a lot of bosses, guys. You're going to just cut them up, basically. Like I said, you're your own wood chipper, basically. And you just cut these puppets up. You cut them up either at the seams or if they're made of wood, you just dice them up. It's like I said, it's an arts and crafts class on steroids. You were just cutting up a lot of shit. I'm not even going to lie. You're cutting up so much stuff. Now, what I also did like that they did really well in this game, and it's kind of cliche, but it still kind of made me laugh. It's good. Like, if you notice the things that I did, there's probably even more that I didn't notice. So feel free to, if you notice more, post them below in the comments section and let me know what I missed out on. Now, see, like I said early on about the Pinocchio reference, kind of like the reverse Pinocchio reference, well, they also put a lot of outside references in this game that I found really interesting. Like when you meet Mr. Pink, he talks and talks and talks and talks and talks. So, like, the little fairy chick that you're rolling with, she's like basically your sidekick. And when you're rolling with her, she mentions that, 140 characters or less, like tweet it. She talks about Twitter. And I thought that was crazy that they actually put that in the game. It made me laugh. Also, for any Angry Birds fans out there, I know you know that the black Angry Bird is the bomb Angry Bird, and he just blows a bunch of crap up, right? Well, when you're fighting the rooster boss, the Angry Birds are actually his children, and you have to throw bombs in their mouth to make them explode, and then when they cough up the smoke, you chop up the smoke to like go farther up to pursue the rooster itself. Now, of course, they did a lot more cliche ones, like the pirates. There's kind of like a knockoff Jack Sparrow pirate captain in this game. You even have to fight a kraken, which, like, I'm a man who loves references, outside references. I love it when they throw it in games because it is amazing. It shows that the cinematography was really good, and it was good enough to actually put it in a game. That's what I love about it. But some of them went a little too far, like I said. The pirates and the kraken, they could have did without that. The rabbit, there's a rabbit, I wouldn't, it might be a stretch to say he's the rabbit from Wonderland because he's riding a unicycle and he's really thin, where the rabbit in Wonderland is kind of chunkier. But when you hear him talk, you'll know because he talks about how he's late. And except in this case, there's no, Queen of Hearts. It's the Moon Bear King who's going to chop his head off. But it's still going to chop his head off. So it's kind of like, they put it in there, but they put their own spin on it. Also, before you go fight the Kraken, there's mermaids. And there's, one of them that looks a lot like Ariel's father from The Little Mermaid. And you're actually fighting the Kraken to take back his trident, which is kind of the same plot that they had in The Little Mermaid. Basically, the Ursula witch chick stole his trident and you had to go get it back, right? So that's basically, these are some outside references that they threw in this game and kind of put their own little spin on it and made their plot mesh. But it made for an interesting story. It made me laugh, like I said, on several occasions. Now, lastly, we're going to go over a couple of things that I didn't like. And these are just me being super nitpicky because overall, I thought this game was amazing. It's not really expensive. I paid like $15 for it. If you can get it 15, 14, hey, it's worth it. It's worth the playthrough, so pick it up, That's all I'm going to say about that because it is an amazing game. Now, a few of the things that I did think that I didn't like were the fact that, I guess maybe since it is kind of geared towards children a little more, I can tell because they, walk you through everything basically. And honestly, I'm a gamer who doesn't like to be walked through everything. I like to stumble and die a billion times and find out, oh, I was supposed to jump there, or I was supposed to, use this certain weapon here. Because, because as a gamer, like, I grew up, like, on the games, they didn't tell you anything. They just set you loose and said, hey, this is what you got to do. This is what you have. Go do it. Now, see, the new school games, they all want to, like, walk you through and spoon feed you and baby you. And I'm really not about that, guys. I really just want to play a game where I can sit down and I can just, because honestly, I can just hammer my head against the wall. Because honestly, half of the fun is talking about it with your buddies later and saying how many times, you had to, like, just beat your head against the wall and just struggle with this certain part because it was really challenging. So that's just me, but honestly, like I said, it's a little too helpful at times. Another thing that I thought about it, I kind of thought it was relatively easy. As far as games, like, I know it's no Battletoads, guys. It's nothing super challenging, but they could have done a little more as to make it a little more challenging than it was. Because to be honest, like, I played through this game, with relative ease. You die a lot, but you get so many continues that it doesn't really matter. I mean, at one point in the game, I probably had, I want to say, like, 40 extra lives. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, there's really no consequence for dying because you get so many lives that it doesn't really matter. It might as well be unlimited continues. And then lastly, and this is the biggest one of all, guys, I love a good story, right? I love a good plot. I love character dynamic, and I love building characters up and, giving a lot of details about them. But this game proves that while you can do too little a story, you can also do too much. I found myself listening to bits of story that would easily take 7 to 10 minutes a piece. And then also, when I got close to the end of the game, like probably the third or fourth act, I just decided, well, hell, I was tired of listening to the story because at that point, the story kind of detracts from me playing the game, and I want to just play the game and figure out what's going on, right? So later on in the game, I just found myself skipping the story. And the funny thing is I would skip one little episode, and it would immediately start another story. And I would have to skip that one too. Sometimes there were 3 stories back to back to back, and you would have to just skip to actually get to the meat and get to what you want to do. Like, I love a good story, don't get me wrong, but there is a time when you need to draw a line and say, hey, this is too much storyline, guys, and honestly, that is one of my biggest beefs with this game. But that being said, really, other than that, it is a phenomenal game. You'll love it. Collectors will love it because you got the collecting aspect. Really, there's just so much that this game has that makes it an amazing game, and it is one that deserves your playthrough and your attention. So if you don't have it already, pick it up, give it a chance, dust it off if you have it and haven't played it, because I bought it like on Thanksgiving and I haven't touched it until now. But I can guarantee you that it is worth a playthrough, and it is worth your time, and it is a phenomenal game, and you will love it. So that's it for me this time, guys. Like I said, if you have any comments or questions, just post them below in the comment section. Subscribe to my videos for new videos every week. And, if you have any games you'd like me to do a review of or shout-outs you want me to do, just post them below in the comment section, and I'll get right on it. All right, guys. Well, till next time, keep gaming and keep exploring.